everybody. My name is Tananya Suchirachai. Today, me and my colleagues, Ocean O'Brien and Lena Federico, is going to present risk assessment of Shanghai. So let's talk about the basic facts of Shanghai. Shanghai is located in the eastern coast of China and lies on the Yangtze River Delta. The two other rivers that intersect the city are Huangpu River and Suzhou Creek. The city spreads over an area of 6,340.5 square kilometers, and its elevation above sea levels ranges from 2 meters to 5 meters. Shanghai is considered a special municipality, which includes 17 districts and 1 county. It has a humid subtropical climate and experiences 4 seasons with occasional typhoons.
Temperatures are predicted to increase between 1.5 and 2.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. Precipitation variance is expected to fluctuate from -5 to 5% by 2020 and 0 to 10% by 2050. And sea levels are expected to rise in the range of 50 to 70 centimeters by 2050. These changes are likely to increase the frequency and severity of extreme weather events. You can take as an example, recently in 1998, there was a flood in which 3,000 people died and 6 million were displaced. As climate change hazards increase, vulnerabilities will increase at the intersection between weather patterns, the existing urban structures, and patterns. Threats to the water supply become more severe due to rising demand domestically. The heat island effect will become more severe, causing adverse effects to public health, as well as increasing energy usage for cooling. We propose that Shanghai focus policy on mitigating the impacts of flooding through the following strategies. 1, expanding areas dedicated to wetlands combined with strategic placement of wetland areas can act as a buffer against flooding. Wetlands also act to purify water and can act to reduce high levels of eutrophication present in the Yangtze River. 2, developing a diverse energy stock that utilizes an array of non-fossil fuel sources will reduce the city's greenhouse gas emissions while increasing resiliency during periods of fuel supply shortages. Additionally, relocating the energy stock to more flood-resilient areas of the city will help safeguard against extreme climate events, allowing the city to have reliable functionality during periods of flooding and other events.
So we identified 2 elements that were consistently overlooked in regards to water sector, and we believe that adaptation strategies in Shanghai should focus on those 2 things. Number 1, there should be a policy focus on securing water supply, and that includes providing Class 1 drinking water for all residential uses, allowing for regeneration in primary water sources, such as aquifers, and alleviating industry and agriculture reliance, because currently more than 50% of Shanghai's water consumption is attributed to the industry sector. Corresponding with this policy focus, the key interventions that we propose, number 1 is assembling an assessment and long-term projections of water availability, rising demand, and usage trends. So essentially, they need to start managing their water better in order to secure its supply to 23 and more million residents. And since the population is not the number 1 consumer, as I mentioned before, they should reevaluate their water distribution. And the second policy focus is deferring impact on infrastructure, which is basically building flood resistance, and that includes infrastructure changes and decentralization of stock. So the key intervention for that aspect would be developing an economic impact assessment and flood-prone response plan for agriculture, energy, and industrial land. So as I mentioned, due to Shanghai's high productivity and economic value to China, they need to start planning for extreme events and build flood resiliency to alleviate possible economic impacts in the future.
The following mechanisms should be implemented to affect mitigation and adaptation measures we have proposed. First, assemble a city agency that focuses specifically on climate change and is responsible for monitoring the city's risk assessment, developing climate change risk response plans, tracking and coordinating mitigation and adaptation measures, communicating with the central government to access additional funding, such as international aid, and collaborating closely with Shanghai Environmental Protection Bureau, Shanghai Water Authority, and the Shanghai Municipal Bureau of Planning and Land Resources. Second, the city should institute economic incentives to promote changes in land use. For instance, promoting the service sector over further development of the industrial sector. This has the co-benefit of further developing and diversifying Shanghai's economy. And secondly, promoting the preservation of existing and the development of new green areas through incentives for outdated or polluting industrial facilities located on prime river locations to move further inland and turn their former property over to wetland recreation.